Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for January 9th, 2017. Can I have a motion to go into executive session for the employment history of particular individual and contractual negotiations?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for January 9th, 2017. We're going to stand for the pledge, but before that, I just want everybody to know that we're going to have a moment of silence afterwards, and Dr. Napacano is going to read the names because it's a very long list of names for the moment of silence. So we're going to have a pledge given by some of our basketball players, Sol, Matt, and Tanner, and then we'll have the pledge and then remain standing for the list that Dr. Knapp is going to give us.
So ordinarily, for those of you who, good evening everyone, Happy New Year to you and welcome, and thank you very much for waiting patiently for us. For those of you who watch board meetings or who have been at board meetings in the past, you know that it's customary for us that right after the Pledge of Allegiance, we usually do a moment of silence for somebody who just recently lost a loved one. Sadly for us at our school district, 12 of our faculty and staff and 2 of our students have lost significant people in their lives. So before we get up to stand for the pledge, I'm going to read those names and then we'll just have a moment of silence afterward. So the mother of Kerry D'Angelo, who is one of our physical education teachers at the middle school, the mother-in-law of Teresa Pfaffenberger, who's one of our CTAs at the middle school, the father-in-law of Sabrina Rizzo, who's one of our district-wide OTs, the grandmother of Coach Resigno, who's the football coach and physical education teacher at the high school, the grandmother of Rachel Koningstein, who is a science research teacher at our high school, the mother of Laura Tolosi, who's the director of wellness in the district office, the father-in-law of Linda Weber, who is a CTA at Brookside, the father of Vibhu Shah, who's a 4th grader at Crown Pond School, and his sister is a student at our high school, the father of Joanne Moritz, who is a 4th grader at Crown Pond School, the father of Valerie Murphy, who's one of our AIS teachers at Mohansick School, the son of Maureen Dunleavy, who is a former data analyst at our school district, retired, and the brother-in-law of Martina Sheridan, who is a CTA at Yorktown High School.
And welcome tonight, and we have good news from the high school, so we have a full crowd here.
We do. We're ready for some good news, and Mrs. DeGennaro, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Dr. Napolitano, Mrs. Carbone. Always an honor and pleasure to be here tonight to celebrate the great news that is going on at the high school regularly. Happy New Year to all. With me tonight are our assistant principals, Mr. Gallis and Ms. Brand, also our director of the alternative school, Mr. Emanuel, our teacher leader for the guidance department, Mrs. Servini, and our library media specialist, Mrs. Mersan. Also with us tonight is one of our school psychologists, Mrs. McGannon. So we have 3 parts to our presentation tonight. We're going to show you some new initiatives. We're going to show you how we've improved communication at the high school, and we're going to recognize academic excellence. I'd like to turn it over to Mrs. Mersan to start with our tech newsletter and our hour of code. Thank you.
So please forgive me, Mr. Cole, but I printed out a copy of our digital newsletter so that you could all see it. This summer, Mr. DeGennaro contacted me and had an idea for how we could share what was happening with technology in the classrooms at the high school. And I responded, of course, I'll gladly help you write a newsletter. So I gathered some stories from teachers around the building using a Google form, but I also know that there are teachers who don't like to brag about what they're doing in the classrooms, so I snuck around to a few classrooms and stole some pictures. So in the tech newsletter, you'll see how Chromebooks are being used in our classrooms, which is a district-wide initiative, but you'll also see some other technology that you might not know to look for in the classroom. We have our speech-language pathologist who's using QR codes to help her kids study. We have the work with the Chromebooks, as I mentioned. We have a lot of research going on where students are utilizing our databases through Mac and VIA, which is our online platform for both ebooks and databases. So there's a lot going on. You'll also see a page that's dedicated to the high school library makerspace, where we have students doing things like building a sign-in system for the library so students can put in their student ID number instead of having to write their name, which is a very difficult task. So we've got some really exciting things happening. We have, I believe he's a sophomore, who has been teaching some of our other students how to crochet, which is really awesome, something you wouldn't really expect to see in the library. You have students pursuing passion projects, things that they want to do with their time. They're learning about electronics, they're learning about sewing, they're learning about crocheting. We're hoping to bring in a parent to teach some knitting classes. So there's some really exciting things happening there. But the most exciting initiative that we did this year was the Hour of Code. I had an idea that I wanted to have our high schoolers work with some of our elementary students to teach them about computer programming. I had in mind 4 or 5 kids that I was going to force to do it. And those 4 or 5 kids actually turned into 25 students that volunteered their time over several weeks to learn about a particular computer program, whether it was low-tech or high-tech, and then come in and teach our 3rd grade students how to code using either a product or the activity that they had designed. It was a smashing success. We had students who saw a few days of it happening and then came in and said, can we help too? Which was really awesome. So the joy of learning to code was able to spread not only through our high school, but also through our 3rd grade students. So we were pretty excited about that. So tonight we'd like to recognize the students who were able to make it tonight of the 25 who volunteered their time happily to make a difference in the lives of our 3rd graders.
As the Board of Education and the District Office Administrators move into position to congratulate our students, I would like to announce if you came in and did not check in with Mrs. Paterno, please come up to the table now just to check in with her. That's the students only.
Megan Brady. Samantha Catalan. Dylan Costello. Nicole DeChico. Michael Flynn. Angelica Galati. Kiana Grant. Kyle Hansen. Abigail Keegan. Julia Kelly. Nisha Weirtindani. Did I Smita Rohita. Emily Olivier. Savannah Otiza. Marina Powell. Olivia Sanchez. Max Schwartz. Julianne Statler. Carlton Stewart.
One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning, I do appreciate, I know we sent the invitations out last week, so short notice, making time to be here for a special event, we do appreciate it. I know I speak on behalf of everybody that's standing up here with me. So I have the honor and the pleasure to recognize our class of 2017 first decile, our top academic students. As I read through them, you'll see that a couple of them have additional awards, National Merit Finalist and Semifinalist, or Valedictorian and Salutatorian from the class of 2017. So our first recipient, class of 2017 first decile, Solomon Baer. Jake Bickler. Jennifer Bradford. Kayla Caputo. Liam Cushion. I have Liam standing next to me. Again, we have a couple multiple award winners. He's a 2017 National Merit Scholarship commended student. Mara DeGuglielmo. Heather Donnelly. Tanner Dislin. Lauren Gammer. Lauren is also a 2017 National Merit Scholarship commended student. Congratulations. Kathleen Granito. John Mark Brow. Valeria Manent. Our next recipient is the class of 2017 valedictorian, which obviously puts her in the first decile as well, Noor Nassar. Claire Ang. Timothy Rochelle. Matthew Salcedo. Matthew Severino. Taryn Tropia. Our next recipient is the class of 2017 salutatorian, obviously a class of 2017 first decile, and also a 2017 National Merit Competition semi-finalist, Siddharth Anand. Each of the first decile students will be honored later in the year, and then also through a variety of other venues as we progress toward graduation. I would like to bring one student up, jump back to the hour of code as a volunteer, who joined us a little late this evening, Lawrence Hetz. For the hour code and also the first decile, did we leave any students out that we missed at the check-in? We only announced the students that are here tonight, so clearly there are others in both categories who could not be with us tonight. We didn't miss anybody? Perfect. On behalf of Yorktown High School Board of Education and the district administrators, we'd like to congratulate everybody for being here tonight, for being honored, your accomplishments in the areas of the community service work, contributing to a new communication newsletter, and of course for academic excellence. Thank you very much.
Of course, on behalf of the board and the district administrators, we'd like to congratulate you parents, first and foremost. Students that are excellent in all ways and always don't just occur out of the blue. They occur because they have fantastic parents. And so you have to take credit, of course, for your child's success. We are very mindful of the fact that they don't grow up in isolation and they don't grow up without somebody who is taking good care to see that they do things correctly all the time. So we do congratulate you first and foremost. And then, of course, to have students, it's always a great honor for us to see you on these kinds of occasions where we're able to say, good job, nice job, we're so proud of you. And I hope that you sense that we're proud of you all the time. Even if we're correcting you, we're taking the time to do that only because we think so highly of you. It would be much easier for us to just ignore you and say, oh, well, that was something that, we could just overlook. And parents, you would understand that. You could do that at times too and avoid the argument in your house by simply saying, okay, if that's what you want to do, but I know you don't do that. It wouldn't be the right thing for you to do, and it certainly would not be the right thing for us to do. So I think what I'd like to say to our students most of all is that when you're being corrected, know that somebody cares about you enough to take the time out to do that. It would be so much easier not to do that and avoid any kind of argument or discomfort. It would be so much easier not to have to do it. But we do it because we respect you enough that we know that it's going to make a difference as you move on beyond us. We are very proud of you tonight, and most particularly, we were very proud to see all of the students that showed up for the hour of the code. It must have been very fascinating for you. I wish some of your parents could have been there to see it. When you have all these third graders who are very enthusiastic and very excited about learning something new, and you have a student in high school who's teaching them how to do something new and trying to create 6 different ways to make it look different when it's really the same, because you know that you're going to lose them if you don't do that. So walking some steps in your teacher's shoes must have been an interesting experience for you. Watching it from the sidelines was very fascinating to me. And when I was mentioning one of the people who passed, and I generally don't do this, but I left a student out, and I feel terrible about it. Dr. Shah, who passed away, didn't only have a 4th grader, he had a 10th grader. And I left her out because I'm not certain how to pronounce the name, and I think it's Shraya.
So I'm going to ask for forgiveness in advance if I've mispronounced that name. But in speaking to Mrs. Shaw, what she told me, and sometimes our students are so wonderful, she said her daughter's consoling her through this whole ordeal of the dad's long illness and eventually passing was something so significant in her life, something so meaningful, and something that she'll never forget. And what I always say to people when they lose someone that they love, if they had a good life, if they knew that they were loved, and if they are going to be remembered for the wonderful people they are, then that's the most and the best that we can do. So forgive me for leaving out that name. She's a 10th grader in our high school, and she's a lovely young lady. I just was fearful that I mispronounced it. I still have a feeling I did. But she's a super kid. And again, I thank you all very much for your patience, for coming out tonight, and for having such wonderful children. We're very proud of them. Have a good night.
Okay. That was wonderful, Ralph. Thank you very much. The high school did a great job. The hour code seems like it was a lot of fun.
It was great,
Okay.
really wonderful.
Awesome. We're up to public comment. Is there anybody wishing to speak on agenda-related items? Okay. We will move on to the superintendent's report then.
Well, thank you. If you don't mind, I'm going to relocate myself.
Don't go too far.
I promise, I'm going to come right back. Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present on
Proposing the establishment of a capital project fund. As the board would remember, we have discussed this on several occasions at board meetings, but this will be the first formal presentation, and it's something that I would like to continue to speak about as we move on through the budget process. So, Yvette, if you don't mind. So as far as the history goes, the taxpayers would remember that back in 2006, that was my first year, so I remember it vividly, they approved a bond in the amount of $37,648,000. And the following school year, 2007, work began district-wide on a number of projects that were identified by the taxpayers. In 2007, the state provided some additional funding called Excel, which the taxpayers voted on approving, receiving an additional sum of money, $2,680,000 to be exact. With the additional funding, we actually had a pot of $40,328,000 for renovations. From the years 2008 through 2016, work continued in all of our buildings and on our grounds. And as you all know, from the beginning of this school year, we're now in the process of finalizing a few things that are left to be done. There is an updated list. I've made a note of that on the slide. There is an updated list of all the projects that were completed over this 11-year period, actually a 10-year period, on the website. The reason why we were able to accomplish so many things was because there were very favorable conditions. We actually did a lot more with the $40 million than we anticipated, but there were many conditions and many people that really helped us along to accomplish that. First and foremost, there was a low-interest environment, which is now in the process of changing. Tom would speak to that more than I can, so that was helpful. The economic conditions of the time brought in some highly competitive bids, so we were able to accomplish some more work than anticipated. We had excellent project managers in ARIS, and I know I've spoken to you about them before. I know that you've met them on several occasions when they've presented, and they have been nothing short of outstanding. They are so much a part of the fabric of the place, I almost feel like they're our employees rather than just project managers that were hired. We had excellent architects in KSQ who really did some remarkable designs in all of our buildings. We had a very committed steering committee. The steering committee met approximately every 2 weeks throughout the 10 years, 11, that this was in play and actually that the work was going on. And people were very faithful about attending and very attentive to the needs of what had to be done. We had an outstanding maintenance and ground crew led by Dennis Verbois and Marty Danko, who oftentimes picked up some additional work and really did some very creative work for us. And then, of course, we've had stable board leadership with our president, Jackie Carbone, who has really been at the center of the renovations. And I would have to say publicly and acknowledge that publicly, that no one has worked harder on all of the renovations that have occurred in our district over these years. So it was really these conditions and these people that allowed us to get a lot accomplished. What I'm here to talk about really this evening is not so much what we've done, but what we need to do moving forward. And I really would hope that everybody takes this in the spirit in which it's presented. We never want to be back in the condition that we were in 2006, which I would have called unacceptable, and that's really putting it mildly, due to the deferred maintenance that had gone on prior to that time. I did ask for some pictures to show you what some of the things looked like, some of our facilities, not things, some of the facilities looked like prior to the renovations. The far left picture is a picture of the auditorium, and I would tell you that it's not the gorgeous auditorium that you see now. The locker rooms, which is the center picture, were absolutely terrible. There's no other way to describe them but to say they were in abysmal shape. And then, of course, what we see now, or what we have now, the beautiful pond, that wasn't so much done to beautify the campus, but really it was done to prevent flooding, which was going on in both our high school and middle school. But it is renovated, and we have never had a flood since that renovation. And it does look really beautiful and part of the campus, rather than something that you would be embarrassed to bring somebody on the campus. Moving forward, we are committed to ongoing maintenance and upgrading of all of our facilities. And as you would imagine, there's more work to be done. So how do we attain our goal of moving forward now that the bond money is exhausted? Just to give you an example of some of the things that have been accomplished, I know that you've seen these before, but forgive me, I guess I'm so proud of it that I have to keep addressing them. The locker rooms are beautiful, both in the middle school and in the high school. And what I also would say is that our students have been remarkable in keeping them in prime condition. You're seeing not the photo on the day they were finished, but the photo as they exist today. And in many circumstances, that's 9, 10 years after the project was done. Our auditorium was one of the first things that was done 10 years later. It looks as beautiful as it did 10 years ago. And I think to the far right, that's our pool, our renovated pool. And once again, it's something that I know that when other schools visit, they're amazed to see something so beautiful and so inviting. Continuing, there are more locker room photographs, our tennis courts, and our entry into the high school. And I probably took the liberty of adding more, maybe because I was just on a roll, forgive me. That would just show you what that pond work really encompassed, and it was quite complex. And then also the cafeteria and the nurse's office at Crampon. I tried to take, there were so many renovations that occurred over the years, but I tried to take something from every building and from a different aspect, whether it be the nurse's office, the cafeteria, the pond, the athletic program, the music program, that would give the public remembrance of what things were like and what they're like now. So how do we attain our goal of continuing with our work and making sure that we never fall into a situation where we would seek a large bond to get work done? And we've talked about this at great length, and one of the things that occurs to us is we should be establishing a capital project reserve, just to make sure that everybody understands exactly what that is. I know the board understands it, but for the public, under New York State law, we are allowed to establish a capital project reserve fund, just like other funds that we already have currently in the district. For example, we have a tax certiorari reserve. That's come in very handy to us because, as the board recalls, we've paid millions of dollars out in certiorari's. If we hadn't had that fund, we would have ended up having to have a higher tax rate than we have put out over the years. We have a retirement contribution reserve because, again, the contribution for our pensions is based on the market. So if the stock market is good, the rate of the tertiary is low. The rate of the reserve or the pension payment is low. If, on the other hand, the stock market is not in good condition, you would have a very high pension rate. So we do have that also, and we were able to use that money when the rates were up high without impacting the taxpayer. There are 8 other types of allowable reserves, but right now, rather than talk about them, I would prefer to just talk about the Capital Project Reserve Fund. The purpose of this fund is to pay the cost of a capital project that would be similar to what a bond would be used for, except that we wouldn't be bonding. Many school districts have established this type of reserve, and there's a lot of good reasons why they would do it. First of all, it would avoid the need for a large bond. And I don't know if I went ahead of you or there I am. Thanks. It would avoid the need for a large bond as we did 2006, where it was 38, whatever I said that number was. It would avoid accompanying interest payments. To date, on that borrowing from the bank, we've paid $6 million in interest, and I often think about how many projects could have been done with that money. It does not require an increase in taxes. It utilizes our own cash reserve savings to accomplish identified projects, and it allows us to continue maintaining and meeting our current needs. We have a very good credit rating, which enables us to consider this, and we have been consistently under the tax cap, which enables us to be looking to proceed with this confidently. What have we done to plan for this proposal? We established a committee consisting of administrators, teachers, board members, architects, project managers. We've met 3 times from the month of August through about November to begin to identify and prioritize potential projects. We've discussed the requirements to establish the fund. We've included information about it in all of the newsletters. So the community has seen, probably in the August newsletter, I think I did it just about every other month, October, December, where there's been mention of the Capital Project Fund. And those letters are on the website so that hopefully the community has also taken the opportunity to read that. And we've discussed this at district level PTSA meetings. Again, I would say beginning in September, I probably did it every month or every other month. So I think many people have heard this, they're familiar with it, but I would look at this as the first formal presentation. And we did have a newspaper article in the Yorktown News that tried to capture the essence of what we're looking to do. In terms of the requirements, we would have to determine the maximum amount that the district would be able to place in this fund. We would have to determine the number of years to maintain the fund. We would place the proposition on the ballot in May for voter approval. In order to establish the fund, we have to have the voters approve it. And if the fund is established and approved by the voters, we would determine the sequence of projects for pre-approval by the voters moving forward. And the projects will require, as you know, voter approval to use the funds. So it's not like we would just do this in isolation. We would do it with the community and with community input. So this is a simple presentation, and I thank you for listening. Again, my hope would be that we would be able to really talk about the establishment of this fund, getting it on the ballot, and giving the public an opportunity to see the great benefits that I believe would be derived for having such a fund. And I think that's it for now. So I thank you.
Thank you. Of course, you know I'm a big proponent of it anyways. Does anybody have any questions that they wanted to ask? I have just one. As I was reading through the people who have already been told about the fund through your newsletters and stuff, how are we going to reach the community that doesn't have students within the schools to let them know this in advance of the May vote, because you don't want it to come as a surprise to them. So do we have any ideas, or can we think about ideas to maybe find a way to, I know the Yorktown News is one way. Is there any other way we can,
So you raise a really important point, because again, I take for granted everybody's going to read the newsletter, and obviously if you're not a parent in the school, you may choose not to do that. And my newsletters tend to be long, so you wouldn't just be able to say, oh, look, there's that paragraph on page 7. So for the parents that do read it, that's great. For the community, we should give that a lot of thought between now and seeing the article in the newspaper was great. It was unexpected. I didn't know that was going to happen. But I was happy to see it because, again, it would give some, not only credibility, but some legibility or some knowledge of it to everybody else outside of the immediate school community. So I'm open for suggestions and very much willing and able to do it.
maybe we can use our sign out front and to direct people to go to the website to look at what we're proposing. So maybe, that's, I don't know how else to get them to know.
Right, we can think that through, and maybe the PTSA would have some suggestions. We'll give that some consideration between now and the 30th.
Terrific, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions, comments? Thank you, Ralph.
Thanks.
Did you have anything else with the superintendent? No, that was it, right? Okay, we're, what?
Maybe there's just one other quick
Yeah.
thing. I'm sorry, forgive
I
me.
thought so.
I just wanted to let the board know that our athletic director was given the Don Dimaggio Service Award by the Section 1 Football Coaches Association, and he was nominated by Mike Rosigno, our football coach. And I'd just like to read briefly what Mike wrote about Theo. Theo has been a longtime advocate for Section 1 athletics and has put his efforts into the betterment of the game of football from top to bottom. I have witnessed Theo make incredible contributions both locally and section-wide, said Rosigno. Theo has been involved in the leadership of Section 1 athletics in a capacity that cannot be defined by any one title. He has always donated his time beyond Yorktown because he believes that interscholastic sports are the cornerstone of education. And I just would second that. I was asked to give a comment, and this is what I simply said. There is no one more deserving of the honor than Theo Nardone. He exemplifies all of the qualities that the late Donald Dimaggio stood for: commitment, leadership, passion, empathy, humility, and integrity. Theo leads by example, models what he expects, and supports our coaches, our athletes, and our programs at all times. So I was very pleased that he received the award, and he did already receive it at the, I guess they have a huge football gathering, and he received it at that annual banquet, which was held in Pearl River. So thank you.
That's nice of you. He's well-deserving, and it's not the first of awards, and he's so humble that he doesn't let anybody know about them, but we really appreciate that he gets them. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we're up to the education report, Lisa?
Take an opportunity to update you on a project that Dr. O'Connor started several years ago in regards to the development of K-5 standards-based report cards. The purpose of the work at the time that continues today is to develop standards-based report cards. And standards-based report cards allow for a breakdown of specific academic skills and content. And that enables teachers to have detailed information about the skills that their students acquired and where they may need additional instruction and support. Standards-based report cards also provide a common language for communication between teachers and parents about student needs specific to the standards and the skills that can be reinforced at home. And they also establish a clear pathway for vertically aligning skills and content in order to prepare students to proficiently meet the rigor of the New York State assessments. So just a quick timeline. This work started with Dr. O'Connor and in 2013-14 school year. really looked to adopt standards-based grading policy and began with the transition of standards-based report cards in grades K through 3 during that year. So basically, a grading philosophy we really looked to mirror was that in terms of the New York State testing and how there is a 1 through 4 grading policy. The scores going from below proficiency, developing towards proficient, and developing and demonstrating mastery. When you look at a traditional report card, you may have gotten a grade for reading. You may have gotten another grade for math. What the standards-based report card does is break those skills down into the sub-skills that are necessary to show progress in the standard. So for example, in grade 1, under mathematics, you would have a sub-skill on a standards-based report card that's for operations and algebraic thinking. One of the sub-skills, again, underneath that would be to represent and solve problems involving addition, to represent and solve problems involving subtraction. So instead of getting 1 grade for math, you're seeing a mirror of sub-skills that are linked directly to the standards where a parent can say, they've mastered this skill but not this skill. And that helps the teacher, helps the parents to know specifically where to target any type of intervention. In the 14-15 school year, the transition of standards-based report cards expanded from K3 to include grades 4 and 5. And during last school year, we looked again at grades 4 and 5 to just make sure that we were tapping into all of those the current Common Core standards, and if we were reflecting those appropriately on a report card, not to be an overwhelming document for the parents, but to really reflect the skills in the given areas. So just wanted to share with you the work that's happening this year, and I'm sorry, that heading should say K3, not K5. So our current focus this year has been, again, to look at the K3 report cards at the elementary level. We're looking to make sure that with the new revision of the standards, we are targeting all areas that are necessary for parents to understand the growth of their students. So just last week, we had grade level committee meetings. The committees are represented by a couple of grade level teachers, David Lease, and our English and math coaches that help support our work at the K5 level. We looked at the new draft ELA and math standards, and we looked at to identify some changes, and then we compared where those changes are going to be and what's currently written on our report card. So for example, a grade 3 ELA and writing new standard that is going to be rolled out is that students can use domain-specific vocabulary to inform about a topic in their writing. When we compare to what's currently on our report card, it basically says use varied vocabulary. So can we look to add domain-specific, that actual language into our report card. It's good conversations, it's good opportunity for our teachers to work through what we're teaching, and then we can see the progression from grade to grade as we look at specific skills. We're going to be looking to incorporate the new standards in ELA, math, science, and social studies, as well as the arts into our standards-based report cards. We're going to continue to focus on the alignment of grade-specific skills, and we're also going to revise it, if needed, the grading measures and the grading description so parents understand what that means. We're hoping that our K3 report cards with any revisions will be reflected in next year's report cards that go home to parents, and our elementary report cards go home 3 times a year. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, just when will the change go into effect?
Next school year. So we're really looking, right now we're working off the draft New York State standards, which we're expecting the state to finalize within the next month or so. We also have new standards for science and new standards for social studies, all with an implementation date of 2017 school year. So with all of that information, now's the time to work off what we know are set standards, what are the most possible draft standards, and start to tweak our report cards so they're ready to go with next school year.
And are you expecting a lot of, I would say, maybe confusion or what kind of change sort of management?
I don't expect there to be. Several years ago when we first rolled out the first standards-based report card, there was some conversation with parents who just needed some explanation, and I think Dr. O'Connor and the principals handled that very well. Our teachers are well-versed in the language that they use with parents. I think if anything, it'll really just be some tweaks in the sub-standards here and there throughout the report card.
Okay. Thank you.
Rashmi? Tom? Christine?
I just had a similar question, and mine was about the professional development or training for teachers. Are the committee members going back and weekly or monthly meeting with the other teachers in the building, or is the district planning
professional development to make sure that all teachers are uniform and consistent in the grading?
So what we do now, and we do this with a lot of committees that we have, because we can't obviously get grade levels of teachers together throughout the school day, so we have representatives on multiple committees. The goal for those representatives is to go back at the grade level meetings that happen after school once or twice a month and share this information. When we get to the grading piece, it will require more conversation with the whole grade levels to make sure that that is clearly understood by the teachers, because we want to make sure that teachers are grading similarly in each classroom. But when we've talked in the past about the common assessments we're doing at the K-5 level, those skills and those common assessments are throughout every class, and the report card skills will reflect that. So we'll have some common data that's used by all the teachers. So we are starting, and hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have it where it's now clearly understood by everyone.
I just have a question. It's a twofold question. One is, how are these, how do parents take these new report cards? Do they understand them? Like when you use words like domain-specific vocabulary, is that explained to the parents so parents understand what that means when they get the report card?
So those are the conversations that are happening in these meetings. So we looked at the standard. The standard language says students in grade 3 will use domain-specific vocabulary in their writing. So the teachers are having the conversation, what makes the most sense to put on the report card? Will it be domain-specific? Will it be content area? How are we defining it? How does the state define it? We define it, and how can we explain it to parents? So I think a lot of that will take place at the individual levels, because not every grade level is going to have that type of each grade level is different, reflecting the skills needed at that level.
How have the parents reacted to the new report cards? They've had them a couple years now.
I think that they valued the report cards because it gave more information than just a regular grade, a specific grade for one area and one sub-skill. It really delved into, you could see a sequence of 8 to 10 skills underneath and really understand why my child might be struggling in a certain area. I think at the time there was maybe some confusion about the grading more so than the report card itself, and once that was clear, I think we're in a good place. I think, we don't get a lot of questions from parents about the report card grades because it's clear and it's understood.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Great.
And just, if you recall, our first parent-teacher conference day takes place right around the time as we're rolling out our first report card. So there's already some of those conversations taking place before the report card comes to the parent.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Any other questions? No. Thank you very much. Okay. What are we up to? We're up to policy adoption. We are doing the second read and a motion to adopt the following policies. We have, well, I don't even have to read them all.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, special education. A motion to arrange the following special ed placements as of January 9, 2017.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I have a motion to approve the attached committee members for the CSE and the CPSE for the 2016-17 school year. It's adding a parent member.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have a resolve that the Board of Education approves the terms of the release and settlement agreement involving student ALTID number 4642.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have a donation, a motion to accept with gratitude the following gifts, grants, and donations to the Yorktown High School, a top loader kiln for the Yorktown High School Art Department from A Time to Kiln.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're up to board comments. Christine?
I'm good.
Mike?
Nope. No moment.
Murphy?
I'm
No?
good.
I'm not allowed to speak because Alabama's playing right now and Tom wants to go home. Public comment, anybody wishing to speak? No? Ralph, Tom, Lisa, anything?
Good.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Good night,
Thank you.
everyone.